Hey everybody, and welcome back to BoatFools. So today's a big day because if you give me 6 minutes of your time, I'm going to give you the 3 most important questions you must ask yourself before you start your boat buying process. And before starting your boat buying process, I mean before you figure out your budget, before you figure out your intended use, and before you fall in love with the boat that you want to buy, and before you start planning that summer vacation sailing trip you're going to take next year. Okay? These are the 3 most important questions you must answer, because here at BoatFools, it's our job to keep you from looking like a fool. But if you don't answer one of these 3 questions, you're going to get caught with your pants down, and it's going to be embarrassing. All right? So answer these 3, and then you can start the next phase of the process, which is figuring out your budget and everything else that comes after that. Because the answers to these 3 things is going to impact all of the rest of it. Okay? So here we go. Number 1, where are you going to store it? Look, if you live in the Northeast or the North or the Northwest, it's quite likely that you haul your boat in the fall and you drop it back in the water in the spring. All those months in between, your boat's got to hang out somewhere, right? So your 2 options are the boatyard or your backyard. Now, if you're going the boatyard route, you need to check to make sure they have availability. You need to check on their pricing. You need to check if they allow for DIY sailors like yourself to work on the boat. You don't want to hire the boatyard to work on your boat for you. That's going to be an astronomical fee. Okay, also you got to find out if they provide jack stands or boat covering services. Are you going to shrink wrap it, or are you going to do something else? These are added costs. Are you going to have the mast in or out? More costs. Is it going to be on your boat? Is it going to be beside your boat? Is it going to be in your boat? Need to figure this out. You got to find out what their provisions are and what their availability is and what they allow for. Very important, because this is going to be a big cost. Okay, if it's going to be in your backyard, you also have associated pros and cons with this. Nice that it's in your backyard and you can work on it whenever, but you got to make sure that you have a proper pad for it. If it's not going to be on your paved driveway, if it's going to be in the yard, you might have to put a gravel pad down. This is not cheap, but you can't put jack stands on grass as your boat's going to fall over. Are you going to have water and power there? Are you going to need jack stands? Are you going to need to buy a cover? Jack stands run about $200 a pop. Boat covers range from $0 to $6,000 or more, depending on the size of your boat. You need to figure out where and how you're going to store your boat, because this is going to factor in to your future budget that you're going to figure out after you answer these 3 questions. Okay, so number 1, where are you going to store it? Number 2, where are you going to moor it? Number 1, where are you going to store it? Number 2, where are you going to moor it? If your boat doesn't come with a slip or a mooring, where are you going to put it? Look, this little harbor out here, there's a 7-year wait list for a 36-foot boat to get a mooring. Now, you need to walk down to your harbor master, call your harbor master or whoever it is in your town and find out what the availability is. You need to find out what the annual costs are. You need to find out if there are costs associated with servicing that mooring every year. And if there's a wait list, can you get on it without actually owning a boat, especially if it's like 7 years? In the meantime, walk down to or drive down to the harbor down the street and find out if there's availability there. That's what we did. We got a mooring instantly. This harbor, 7 years, down the street, no wait whatsoever. Additionally, you need to find out if there's a dinghy dock and what those fees are, because once you buy a boat, you want to get out to it, right? Do they have a dinghy dock? What does that cost? And if they don't, is there a launch service? And what does that cost? All right. These are important questions. You don't want to buy a boat and sit on it for 7 years in your backyard because you can't find a place to put it in. Your boat will end up looking like this, right? Do your homework. All right. So 1, where are you going to store it? 2, where are you going to moor it? And keep in mind too, with the mooring situation, the larger the boat and the deeper the draft, it's possible that the wait list will be even longer for that. So find out, because if you have a shallower draft boat, it might be a shorter wait time. All right. All right. The trifecta of the 3 questions, last but hardly least, how are you going to move it? Okay, look, if you're not trailing this thing behind your car to your house, you're going to have to hire a marine transport company to do it for you. You need to find out the cost. You need to find out if they can take your mast if you're popping that out, which you would be if you're transporting it with the marine transport service. And you need to ask if they'll drive by your specific location to find out if they can get their rig in and out, because you might have to modify your driveway or your parking area where that boat's going to be to accommodate for those big rigs. Ask the questions. Most importantly, find out about their scheduling. Find out when in the spring you have to contact them to get your boat in the water in the early summer, and find out when you have to contact them in the summer to get hauled out in the fall. It's not day of service. You need to call like 3 months in advance, but find out. It's different everywhere, but it's important to do so. Okay. Number 1, where are you going to store it? Number 2, where you're going to moor it. Number 3, how you're going to move it. And all 3 of these things are going to factor into the type of boat you buy and your budgeting process. It's imperative that you answer these things before you take the next step of budgeting and finding out your intended use and finding your boat and planning that sailing trip. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it useful. See you next week.